It's 15 days between now and the election. It means tomorrow is 14 days, which means I don't know what your pacing system is like or what your stamina is like, but whatever you do to keep yourself going 15 days in advance to be at your strongest 15 days from now, now's the time to start doing that stuff. As you can tell, I actually don't have a very organized way to approach this, but I know that this next 15 days is going to be full tilt. Eat your Wheaties. All right, that does it for us tonight. We'll see you again tomorrow. Way Too Early with Casey Hunt is up next.
You don't understand. I understand well. You don't understand, and you never have understood.
You authorize your doctors to tell you when you tested negative last before the last.
Is that very important to you? You seem to be so intent. But if it's so important to you, why is it so important to you?
Because we want to know how long it may have been.
Why?
We want to know if you followed the rules.
But why is it so important to you?
Authorize your
Look at the
doctors
dedication.
Campaign strategy seems to be to call Biden a criminal. Why is that?
He is a criminal. He's a criminal. He got caught, read his laptop, and you know who's a criminal? You're a criminal for not reporting it.
With coronavirus cases up and his poll numbers down, the president lashes out with Election Day just 2 weeks away. The question is, does the president have a coherent closing message? Plus, the debate commission announces changes ahead of Thursday's second presidential face-off. The question is, will the new rules prevent this debate from turning into another debacle? And the House Speaker says progress has been made on pandemic relief talks. The question is whether a bill will be ready before Election Day. It's way too early for this. Good morning and welcome to Way Too Early, the show that is definitely still deciding on its Halloween costume. I'm Casey Hunt on this Tuesday, October 20th. We'll start with the news. With Election Day just 2 weeks away, the president appears desperate to turn the page on the pandemic, which continues to weigh down his poll numbers and sicken so many Americans. The president is also ramping up his public attacks on infectious disease Dr. Anthony Fauci. After Fauci's appearance on 60 Minutes on Sunday night, NBC News obtained this audio of the president on a campaign call with staff yesterday.
People are tired of hearing Fauci and all these idiots, these people that have gotten it wrong. Fauci's a nice guy. He's been here for 500 years. Every time he goes on television, there's always a bomb, but there's a bigger bomb if you fire him. But Fauci's a disaster.
And later tweeted, quote, Dr. Tony Fauci says we don't allow him to do television. And yet I saw him last night on 60 Minutes. And he seems to get more airtime than anybody since the late, great Bob Hope. All I ask of Tony is that he make better decisions. He said no masks and let China in. The president then mocked Fauci's ceremonial pitch at the Nationals game earlier this year, posting, quote, also bad arm. And here's Trump at a campaign rally in Prescott, Arizona later in the day.
Pandemic. They're getting tired of the pandemic, aren't they? Getting tired of the pandemic. You turn on CNN, that's all they cover. COVID, pandemic, COVID. You know why? They're trying to talk everybody out of voting. People aren't buying at CNN, you dumb bastards. They're not buying. That's all they're talking about. You know, Biden wants to lock it down. He wants to listen to Dr. Fauci.
Responding to that attack linking Joe Biden to Dr. Fauci, the former vice president tweeted, ... yes. He also called the attack, quote, a badge of honor. Dr. Fauci also responded, calling the president's criticism a distraction.
It's like in The Godfather, nothing personal, strictly business. As far as I'm concerned, I just want to do my job and take care of the people of this country. That's all I want to do.
Fauci also reiterated in his 60 Minutes interview that he's not advocating a national lockdown and says he wants to use public health measures to safely reopen the economy. In between campaign stops, President Trump yesterday touted the size of the crowds showing up for his rallies, even though none of them are socially distanced, as required by state laws. And few attendees are wearing masks.
I'm very happy with the way it's going. I don't think it's being covered fairly. I don't think you're showing the kind of enthusiasm. I don't think you're showing the crowds and the crowd size you did in the Washington Times. I appreciate that. But for the most part, they're not. But these are the largest crowds ever to meet for rallies, by far, not even by a little bit. And I don't think people are showing, in terms of the media, the enthusiasm. But the main thing is that people know.
Again, the crowds that flout state restrictions, the crowds that are gathering when many restaurants, theaters, music venues are not gathering crowds that size because of COVID-19. Meanwhile, the president mocked NBC's own Kelly O'Donnell yesterday as she asked him to authorize the release of information on whether he took a COVID test before the last debate with Joe Biden. Watch.
You authorize your doctors to tell you when you tested negative last before the last
Is that very important to you? You seem to be so intent. But if it's so important to you, why is it so important to you?
Because we want to know how long you may have
Why?
been.
Why?
We want to know if you followed the rules.
But why is it so important to you?
Authorize your
Look at the
doctors to release
dedication.
that
Yeah, my
information.
doctors have already given it. You know, my doctors have given more information than has been given on any human being in the history of the world.
His doctors have not given us that information, by the way, that my colleague Kelly O'Donnell was asking for. The president said that he would be tested before the debate on Thursday, although he also claims that he is now free of the virus and immune. On Capitol Hill, coronavirus stimulus talks are making some headway as House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin, quote, continued to narrow their differences. According to the Speaker's spokesman, Pelosi's Deputy Chief of Staff, Drew Hamill, tweeted in an update yesterday that the two leaders spoke for about an hour and that the Speaker has tasked committee chairs to reconcile differences with their GOP counterparts on key areas. He continued by saying that Pelosi hopes that by the end of the day, Tuesday, today, we will have clarity on whether we'll be able to pass a bill before the election. He also noted that Pelosi and Mnuchin are planning to speak again today. On Sunday, Pelosi set a 48-hour deadline for the White House to reach a deal for more coronavirus aid. Joining us now, senior writer at Politico and co-author of The Playbook, Jake Sherman. He is also an MSNBC contributor. Jake, good morning. I feel like we have had this conversation many times at this hour over the last few weeks about whether it was actually possible that they could pass a coronavirus bill before the election. What's your take on how serious this is? I mean, it does seem like there is some movement, but there is, of course, that looming divide. Even if Mnuchin and Pelosi can actually get a deal between the president and Senate Republicans, what are you hearing?
Well, today, good morning, Casey. Today's the 91st day of negotiations between the administration and Capitol Hill over this latest coronavirus relief package, which has gone absolutely nowhere over these last 91 days. Now, Pelosi and Mnuchin have made progress, but there are still very many places, very many policies and top-line numbers, and all elements of this bill are very far from being done, rather. And I'm very, very skeptical, as are you, Casey, it sounds like, that this could get wrapped up today. Now, it's not impossible, but I just find it very difficult to believe that they will wrap up some of these issues, which we are going to lay out in Playbook this morning, in the next basically 24 hours. Now, if they don't wrap it up, it's possible that this bill gets passed in the lame duck session of Congress after the election. And neither side is saying that they're going to walk away from the table, but there's just a recognition, Casey, as you know very well. In 2 weeks, it's quite difficult to pass a $2 trillion bill when a lot of people want to be home campaigning. And that's just a reality that neither side can control, and it's just part of the standard rhythms and practices of Washington.
Yeah. What's your take on where the incentives are right now? I mean, if you're House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, you're reading all these polls, you're expecting the Senate to be friendlier to you next year after the elections, you're potentially expecting Joe Biden to be in the White House. If you're Speaker Pelosi, does it make more sense to try to push this through now, get this out the door now, or does it make more sense to wait? I mean, I can see arguments for both sides. I mean, if they wait, then it becomes the first thing that you have to do in a Biden administration. But if you don't if you don't wait and you push through here, perhaps you have to spend more time negotiating with Republicans and give up some of the things you want. Like, what's the thinking in the Speaker's office?
Well, that's a very good question, Casey. I think that you could look at this a million different ways. Pelosi has made the argument privately that she wants to get some of this stuff done now so Biden doesn't have to deal with it, but she also has to contend with Chuck Schumer, who, by the way, probably does not, if you were to look at his natural inclinations, probably does not want to give Senate Republicans something to vote on when they're up against the ropes. Now, I've become skeptical that a lame duck deal is possible, and I think that if they don't pass this in the next 2 weeks, or try to pass this in the next 2 weeks, coronavirus relief could slip until January, February, or March, just because it's going to be difficult to get a package through in the early days of the next Congress anyway. So I think Mitch McConnell also has an interesting calculus here. I mean, he does not like the price tag, but there are some of his members who wanted to a bill to vote on, and it will help them electorally. So a lot of different calculuses in the mix right here, and the big question is Stephen Mnuchin. I mean, Republicans are so distrustful, do not like Mnuchin, believe he gives up the farm every time he talks to Pelosi. We kind of laid that out in Playbook this morning, and they're worried what he might give up in his quest for a deal. He's very eager for a deal and very eager to give Donald Trump something to tout on the campaign trail.
Yeah. Well, and to your larger point, I think the idea that this lame duck Congress after this election is going to be some sort of sane, normal period of time is probably not what I think any of us are assuming is going to happen. No. Politico's Jake Sherman, thank you as always, my friend. It's always great to have you at this hour. Still ahead, a look at what to expect tonight when the Dodgers and the Rays face off in Game 1 of the World Series. Plus, new changes announced for Thursday night's presidential debate. What both campaigns are saying about that. Those stories and a check on the weather when we come right back.